Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Just a quick run through with Park View. What we wanted to be able to do today was really just part of a wider webinar program that we're running across all the developments. So we're looking to talk to all clients that are invested across the many schemes that and developments that we currently have across the UK. This one will be relatively short and sweet. We've got obviously a significant update to give you, but ultimately we're not out of the ground yet. So it's as a development update, it will be relatively short. So key points. Well, I think the key point is first and foremost, we secured planning on Thursday last week. So the good news is we're now good to go on site. Obviously, all the original values, so anyone that's joined us this morning will have been reserved off the original pre-consented values, which have changed significantly, obviously, when we go to launch open market. But obviously you've locked in your advantageous values. So appreciate you bearing with us through the planning process, and obviously in return we can now show you the benefit of locking in those original values. So values have obviously increased, as I say, from where you bought into the development, but all existing clients will be issued contracts at the original prices. So on site, I'll just hand over to Peter, who's our development director here at Prosperity, so he can just run you through kind of the next few months, really.
Yeah, so as Joe's mentioned, we got a resolution to grant at the planning committee last Thursday. We do need to sign a Section 106 agreement, which will release the formal consent, but that's anticipated to be signed in December, or to back end of December 2020. And from there, we'll have a period of 6 months, say, of design development and procuring the contract, with an anticipated start on site in around June 2021 next year. So if all goes to plan, and hopefully we'll be out of the ground, well, we've already done the demolition, so we've got the demolition out of the way, which was done back in March this year. So we just got to get the foundations, the design for the foundations, the frame going up, etc. And hopefully hopefully this scheme will be completed around about October 2022, which is roughly about 15-month construction program.
Thank you. And that's from an anticipated start on site going into next year. We'd look to be on site sort of April, May, and June at the latest, really. But yeah, we're keen to get on site now. So as Peter said, there's some design work that we need to do, and then we're keen to crack on with it. There's an image on site taken, well, looks like possibly last week, because it was a bit dull. So yeah, the site's been cleared. So obviously the demolition, the original building, although there's still got the facade up, haven't we? I think
we still got the facade up because there's a bit of retention we need to do to support the highway that runs up the side, and also there's a bit of you'll see the mound of earth at the back there. There's still a bit of support work that we've left in there to support the adjoining building you can see behind. So we've still got a little bit of site investigation works to do to establish the support for those adjacent buildings. But that'll be ongoing from now.
Okay. And then just bringing us forward now to again, just kind of, I'll say it's relatively short and sweet this, but approval was with the planning, with the 106 in December. We've got approval. The 106 will be signed off in December, and then we'll be going into detailed design on site, and then, as I say, handover sort of Q4 2022. Whilst you're on this morning, just wanted to give you a brief update on kind of where we are as a business generally. So we've got 39 developers in our portfolio currently, just over 400 million, and as you'll note there, 85% of those are pre-sold. So whereas Park View, we did very few sales. I think there's only sort of 15, 18 actual sales that were done. We launched it and then moved away from the business model of being able to for clients to be able to reserve pre-consented. So that's something that we've not done since this early launch, and then so we've got now certainly circa 100 units to go to the open market with. Again, less relevant for yourselves, but I just wanted to touch on kind of where we were in the mortgage market currently. So lenders are coming back to the market. We are seeing a sort of a positive return, but they're wary, and I think sort of certainly there's a bit of caution in sort of coming back. So there's some of the LTVs are lower, some of the rates are slightly higher. The buy-to-let sector has very much been serviced by the specialist market at the moment, so specialist lenders, so less of the high street and more specialist lenders. And the timescales to decisions, offers and valuations have all sort of been quite delayed. So we're finding a sort of a relatively slow process. It's I think combined with the fact that you've got people working from home, a lot of the back office team and staff are working from home in the lenders and across the financial services industry. So that's slightly disjointed, which only then sort of adds timescale to what has, say, typically been a sort of a 8 to 10, 12-week period. We're seeing sort of applications running 16, 18 to 20 weeks at the moment. Surveyors remain nervous and are downvaluing on the whole with a kind of COVID clause around sort of what might happen next year, but the market's sort of bucking against that at the moment as capital values continue to rise, but certainly currently valuers are slightly cautious. So let's just give you a bit of an insight, really. As I say, more in line with kind of for people that are completing now, obviously sort of by the time this completes, the market will be in a different place and lenders will be in a different place, and things should be very much back to business as normal. That was an article just last week on the mortgage market firming up, and there's been more products in the market than it has been since for the last 5 months. Lettings and management, really strong demand at the moment. So we've got currently a 98% occupancy rate, some buildings 100% occupied. Average void days are 13 days, so most tenants, by the time the tenant's moved out, within 2 weeks you've got a new tenant in situ. The average rent has increased by about sort of just under 7% across the board. That doesn't include London, and this is based on our current in-house book that we manage. So prosperity developments that have completed, and we manage an element of each of those where clients have retained us to do the management for them long term. So over 800 units there, and with this is data from those, and from those units we've seen again very few requests for rental holidays due to COVID. So all really positive on the rental side, very strong, very active. Anything that's going on, renting very quickly at strong values. We're expecting that to set to continue. We've got a couple of current completions just to show you. So these aren't our Birmingham spec, they're not the signature spec, but it will just give you a bit of an insight into sort of current developments. I think that sometimes when you're buying in a particular development, all the news is about that particular project, so you don't get to see what we're doing elsewhere. So these are 3 developments that are just completing kind of around now. So Tameway Plaza, 143 units. We've done final handovers here just last week. 90% are occupied. We've been doing handovers now for sort of over the last 3 or 4 months. So as they've been completing, we've been tenanting them. We've got a short film which will just show you kind of the spec, but just to highlight, this is the PDR spec. These units were 99,950 and 119,950, so slightly different spec level. Excellent. Yeah. Just before we move on to Sherwood Square, which is our recently delivered development in Nottingham, just to highlight that there's a question and answer box, should be on your screens. So if you've got any questions, there's a slight lag time on this going out, just sort of around 30 seconds. So we'd like to mention at this point that if you have got questions, it's good to sort of start getting those typed in, so we've kind of got them for the Q&A session, which is coming up very shortly. So Sherwood Square, 24 units of new build, 44 of conversion. This is in Nottingham, and then we've just done our sort of recent handovers here. It's come out really well. It's a gated site. Again, it's a sort of a out of Birmingham spec, so a slightly lower spec point. And these, in relative terms, were 104,995 for the one beds, 119,995 for the two beds with parking. So. This was built complete a couple of months ago. So handovers, we've had again really strong rental uptake on these. We've rented them, got a waiting list currently for handovers. Current developments, JQ Rise is our current flagship, 226 units, a 20 B1 postcode, so still got availability here. And the Hive, again, we like Nottingham, that's very similar to the previous development. Conversion, 21 units there, and those are starting from 106,995 up to 119,995. And soon to launch, going into next year, we are launching our first owner-occupier new homes development. So there will be an allocation for investors, existing investors only. But these are new build housing, down market, 1, 2 and 3 bedroom homes. They are available on the traditional payment plans, but as a developer, it's something that we've wanted to do for a while now. Evolution of prosperity into new homes alongside our conversion and new build apartment projects. As I say, so we're ready for the Q&A now. We've got the first question in. Why was Park View delayed? So I think we've certainly it did take us longer to get it through planning than we anticipated. Primarily, it was a noise point. So it was within Birmingham. A lot of it is brownfield. A lot of it is around light industrial. So Digbeth is a classic area for that, where we've seen areas where we've had to compensate for potential noise. So the original design and specification was redesigned, and very much in the same vein. So where we've got developments in nighttime economy areas such as Kent Street, and in that sort of area, we'll have challenges by being able to insulate the noise against the local nightlife in the city, and in other parts of the city, it's noise around industrial or light industrial. So the original scheme wasn't satisfactory for the EHO and environmental health on noise. So we had to re-engineer the scheme, and then it went back in. And then it became kind of part of the Ray Valley master plan, and then some challenges around there and how that sat sympathetically between Smithfield and the Ray Valley master plan. So a few challenges along the way, and obviously we're mindful of it's taken slightly longer than anticipated. But what we are glad to say now is it's now consented. So again, we appreciate you bearing with us. You mentioned increases in values comparative to when we purchased. When you launch Park View again now, do you have an indication of prices so we can have a sense of how the values of our property have gone up? And that's from Lucy. So thanks for that, Lucy. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not entirely sure where you bought in, but now launch values, one beds will be at around, starting at about 190,000, going up to just over 200, and two beds, I think they're sort of early 200s, sort of 239, I think, sort of starting price. So the market generally has kind of moved from, I think, where you kind of bought in at sort of late 200s, early 300s, now into the sort of £400 a square foot the more sort of B1 postcode, sort of central Birmingham, is probably achieving around 450. Digbeth's around that kind of 400 mark, but set to sort of show further capital appreciation over the coming years. In fact, Digbeth, that sort of Digbeth quarter where you are in Park View, is highlighted by Savills, Knight Frank particularly, has been a real area of growth within the city. So our current land valuations, we're seeing better land valuations in and around that area due to the perceived capital value increasing than we are in central Birmingham. So yeah, certainly some capital appreciation to go there. So we've got one here, Lucy. Let me just try and get up to the question. Let's have a look. Are there any changes to what has been approved to what was originally marketed layout, for example?
Yeah, I think the layouts have slightly changed, but not significantly. It's still the same shape. There's still the same number of units, and there's still a mixture of 1 and 2 bed apartments.
I think we'll be contacting you shortly with any revisions, but majority of people are unaffected. I think anyone where there has been any slight changes, the actual fundamental size and shape of the unit hasn't changed. There may have been the views might have been different if you were kind of originally looking out to what was the original development, which looked out to the car park, and now it's significantly improved, which is it's now looking into a courtyard. So there's potential, there's less density now, isn't there? Because whereas before I think it was sort of one block, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's more of a courtyard now. The scheme over the last it's been delayed, but the scheme has improved over the last 14 months whilst it's been in the planning system. And bear in mind that we have been straddling COVID as well, so we've had the issues with the council in terms of responses from queries from the consultees. So all in all, I don't think we've done too bad to overcome the technical issues with building in the light industrial areas and the challenges that they have with adjoining premises, and also straddling the COVID issues that we've had over the last few months.
Sure. I think we lost at least 4 months of downtime where there was no committees that sat at all. So yeah, I should have mentioned that earlier to the original question. There was certainly some downtime where we could have got this to committee sooner, but at one point there was a shutdown entirely within the first lockdown where committees didn't sit at all until they got organised to sit remotely, which is what our committee was for Park View was held under last week, was a remote review and a remote committee meeting, which wasn't in place under the first lockdown. So yeah, certainly some time lost there. Okay, that was Lucy. Last question there from Lucy. So that's everyone's questions. We'll just give it another sort of few seconds and see if any other questions are in pipeline. Great. There's nothing showing us coming through. So thank you for joining us. I hope you found that useful. We'll be back in touch with you again shortly. You'll receive obviously your monthly updates from Prosperity, quarterly development updates, and on the website there remains the ongoing feed for each of the developments. So you can, on the website, you can click on the developments updates page. Click on the development that you're particularly interested in, and that will give you a current update. So we've got some ongoing live images being posted on there, which are obviously on site at the moment. There's it's remedial works at best, and then but then when we get into first part of the year, going into sort of Q2, we'll see a lot more activity, and then we can see your development coming out of the ground. So as I say, I hope you found that useful. There's no more questions popped up, so we shall leave you now and contact you again soon, either by your update, email monthly update, or we'll arrange another one of these sessions if the feedback is if everyone found it useful. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.